Hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Empowering Teachers Worldwide. I'm Aniel Tamirano, and in today's video, I would like to dive into something we all do every day, but might not be maximizing: classroom discussions. I'm going to share with you 4 powerful discussion strategies that can transform your students' creative, critical, and thinking skills. Now, these aren't just discussion techniques. They are specifically designed to enhance different types of thinking and problem-solving abilities, and I'm sure they will help your students become better thinkers, communicators, and collaborators. Now, I think that oral communication is one of the oldest teaching tools that we have had. Have you ever heard about Socratic questioning? Well, 2,500 years ago, Socrates was already using dialogue and questions to help his students deepen understanding and construct meaning. But discussions aren't just great for critical thinking, they are equally powerful for developing creativity. Creative thinking requires students to develop ideas that are both novel and useful. So let's have a look at how creativity typically develops. There are 3 stages. First, ideation, that is, coming up with original and promising ideas. Then we have iteration, that is, refining those ideas to solve problems more effectively. And finally, innovation, that is, getting others to adopt the creative solution we have come up with. Now, each of these phases benefits from specific types of discussions that activate different cognitive processes. Which are these? First of all, associative thinking, that is, connecting unrelated or seemingly unrelated ideas to create something new. We have also analogical thinking, that is, using concepts we are familiar with to understand new ones. And also reverse thinking, that is, challenging assumptions and looking from opposite perspectives. Now, let's have a look at 4 discussion strategies that I mentioned before that can supercharge these thinking processes. Let's have a look at the first one, and that would be idea building blocks. This comes straight from improvisation theater, but works great in the classroom, especially during the ideation phase. How does it work? When a student shares an idea, the others respond with yes, and they add something to the original idea rather than dismissing it. And this creates a chain of building on each other's thoughts. For example, suppose that we say, what if a community project focused on reducing single-use plastics at school? Second student would respond by saying, yes, and we could design reusable water bottles with our school logo, and students can purchase them, and we can earn through sustainability challenges. And then another student can respond and say, yes, and we could track and display the number of plastic bottles saved each month to show a community impact. You see, this forces students to actively listen and makes everyone's ideas valuable. The cognitive magic happens because they are practicing associative thinking, that is, connecting ideas in new ways. And also, this creates a supportive atmosphere where students aren't afraid to share. So, how can you implement this? Okay, you can start with simple topics, low-stake topics when introducing this technique. Maybe try a fun challenge like creating art using recycled materials before applying it to curriculum content. And you can also implement differentiation here using this idea. For example, for emerging learners, for learners who are not very confident, you can provide sentence starters on index cards, like yes, and we could, yes, on top of that. For participants, that is, for students who are hesitant, who are not sure, you can allow pass and return options where they can observe first what the others do and contribute later. And for more confident students, you can challenge them to incorporate concepts from different subject areas to their additions. You can also create mixed ability trios, and each student has a specific role in the discussion. Strategy 2, constructive upgrade. Now, this takes the idea, sorry, of building blocks to the next level. And it makes this strategy perfect for both ideation and iteration. And this technique was used at, or is still used at Pixar to create their incredible films. Now, how does it work? You can offer criticism, but only if you also offer a constructive suggestion to improve the idea. For example, student one says, we could make a poster about ocean pollution. Second student replies, I like that idea. Plus, what if we include actual samples of microplastics to make it more impactful? And then the third student says, that's interesting, though handling plastics might be tricky. What if we created a mini ocean in a clear container showing the pollution levels instead? So you see, we have one student giving an idea, second student doing the building blocks, responding and adding, and the third one offering criticism and a constructive suggestion. And why does this work? Because it teaches students to think critically about ideas while maintaining a constructive atmosphere. Students learn that criticism isn't about tearing down other people's ideas, but about building better ones. So, how can you implement this? You can create, for example, a visual reminder card with sentence starters. Like, I like this idea, plus, or that's interesting, though, and how can we use this for differentiation? Okay, you can create tiered response templates, simple versions for students who need support, and more complex for more confident students. You can also use a critique buddy system, pairing students with different levels of confidence. For visual learners, for example, you can create a graphic organizer to structure the feedback. And you can also pre-teach vocabulary for giving constructive feedback at different complexity levels. Let's see, another one. The third one, the perspective flip. This strategy is particularly powerful during the iteration phase when students need to refine ideas. They deliberately look for assumptions in their thinking and challenge these assumptions by asking reverse questions. For example, you say, your group has designed an app to help students organize homework. Let's try some reverse thinking. Who would not be able to use this app? What assumptions are we making? And students can reply, okay, someone without a smartphone, or students with visual impairments, students with limited internet access at home. So this leads to improving the idea with alternative formats and accessibility features. How does this work? Well, This activates reverse thinking, helping students spot blind spots in their reasoning. And it also creates space for contrarian viewpoints that might otherwise go unshared. So how can you implement this? For example, you can create a list of reverse thinking question stems on a poster. For example, who would not benefit from this solution? What if the opposite was true? What assumption are we making about whatever it is? Now, how can we differentiate this strategy? For concrete thinkers, we can start with physical objects before moving on to more abstract concepts. We can also implement a think, pair, share approach for students who need some processing time or who are not very confident when speaking, so they can discuss with a partner and sort of rehearse their response before opening up to the rest of the class. For more advanced students, you can introduce multi-level assumption challenges. And you can also create visual thinking maps that show assumption relationships for visual learners. And the last strategy would be concept casting. Now, this is crucial during the innovation phase when students need to persuade others to adopt their solutions. Oops, sorry. Yeah. To adopt their solutions. How does this work? Students craft narratives around their ideas using persona development and also using analogies to make complex ideas instantly understandable. For example, instead of saying, our solution is a peer tutoring system with flexible scheduling, which sounds terribly difficult to understand for some students. So a student says, okay, meet Alex. Alex is a 7th grader who struggles with maths, but is embarrassed to ask questions in class. Our system is like having a friend on call. Imagine Uber, but for homework help. So Alex can request help for exactly when he needs it. And tutors earn community service hours while reinforcing their own learning. Now, why does this work? Stories tap into how our brains naturally process information. So analogies leverage existing mental models to quickly communicate new concepts. So how can you implement this? You can teach students the simply persona plus analogy formula. Create a specific person who would use your solution. And then find a familiar service or a familiar product that your idea resembles. It's like, in this case, it's like Uber, for example. Yeah. Now, how can we differentiate here? First of all, you can provide story templates with varying complexity levels. Also, allowing multimedia storytelling options with drawings, audio, video, written stories. For students who are beginning to communicate, for example, to speak, they're not very confident speaking, use story dice or picture prompts to stimulate ideas. You can also create collective and collaborative storytelling opportunities where students contribute at their comfort level. And for more advanced students, you can challenge them to create multiple personas representing different stakeholders. Now, I would like to share with you some additional tips to integrate these strategies into your classroom. So, first of all, and I frequently say this, start small, baby steps, introduce one strategy at a time, and practice the strategy for 5, 10, 15 minutes as necessary. The first time, maybe it's going to be confusing, it's not going to work very well, but as students get more practice in each of these strategies, they will do it with more confidence, but start small. Also, use visual reminders. Create strategy cards or posters with key phrases because this will help students to remember things. Model the behavior. Show students how to use the techniques in your own thinking. Use think aloud. Also, use reflection prompts. After discussions, ask, how did this change your thinking, for example? And also mixed grouping. Vary group composition so that students are exposed to different perspectives. Now, these strategies aren't just great for building thinking skills. They are also powerful tools for formative assessment. Now, here's how you can use them to gauge understanding and guide your instruction. You can use, for example, observation checklists, creating simple rubrics for each discussion strategy with indicators like, does the student build meaningfully on each other's ideas? The building blocks, for example. Can the student identify specific weaknesses and suggest improvements? For the second strategy. Is the student able to identify hidden assumptions? For the third strategy. And can the student communicate complex ideas through storytelling? For the fourth strategy. Use a simple tracking system during discussions to note student progress without interrupting the flow. You can also use discussion exit tickets. Yes, have your students complete quick reflections. For example, the most interesting idea I heard today was, I built on someone's idea when an assumption we challenged was, the story that helped me understand the concept best was. So they complete this, and it's very easy for you to have an idea, a general idea of how well the activity went. Also, student self-assessment. Teach students to evaluate their own contributions with prompts. For example, rate how well you listened to other people's ideas from 1 to 5. Or what contribution are you most proud of making? Or what would you do differently next time? So self-assessment builds metacognition while providing you with valuable assessment data. Digital documentation. You can use some tech-enabled assessment approaches, using a digital voice recorder for later review of key discussions. Try discussion mapping apps to track contribution patterns. Have student scribes document key points on shared digital boards, or create digital portfolios where students collect their best discussion contributions. And finally, differentiated assessment approaches. For example, for emerging communicators, use visual thumbs up, thumbs down cards to show understanding. Also, accept contributions in the native language and echo in the student's own language later. And with more advanced students, for example, you can have them serve as discussion coaches and provide peer feedback. For students who process differently, allow written contributions or pre-discussion preparation time. Remember, the goal here is to use these assessments to adjust your teaching, not to just evaluate the students. So look for patterns, for example, which strategies work best for which students, where are the gaps in understanding, who needs additional support. So These four discussion strategies align perfectly with different phases of the creative process, and they activate cognitive skills that your students need. So, by intentionally structuring discussions in this way, you are not just teaching content, you are developing the kind of thinking skills that students will need for the future and for future success. By differentiating your approach and incorporating formative assessment, you ensure that every student can participate and grow regardless their starting point. Now, I'd love to hear which strategy you are most excited to try. Drop a comment below, share your experiences or questions, and if you found this useful, please like and subscribe for more teaching strategies. And if necessary, here you are. There you have my contact. Drop a line. Until next time, and happy teaching. Bye.